Nice to meet you too. I'm absolutely loving this show. I think it is my favorite Marvel series to date. It's so
Excellent.
good. Just
I like to hear that.
how do you recreate some of these iconic MCU settings, but still make them unique for the story, like Tavon's collection on Nowhere?
There's two aspects of that. One is like on a place like that, we literally just got a direction from our directors. Like, I want to do the collector's museum, but I want it to be bigger. We're just expanding that world. I mean, they talk about it in the movie. He's got this gigantic collection, and yet in the movie you only see one room. So it's like, well, there must be more back there. Let's discover that. So we and then it's just a matter of just designing more stuff. I mean, and like that particular location, it really is defined by those glass cases. So in that specific place, we just created kind of just a bunch of different spaces based on those boxes. So one was a round space, one was a tall, like narrow corridor, one was a big wide one where T'Challa's floating on them. We'd figured, oh, they can float. Let's make them float. So, part of it is just, you'd speak with the director, and he's got his ideas and the writers have their ideas, and then you just go and do a bunch of drawings and see if they like them.
Well, I thought it was amazing. I love the floating. That was so cool.
Good. The other side of it is we've got our visual style for the show. That's just, it's this illustrated, painted animation background style. So that creates its own level of making things different. Everything will automatically look different just because we put it into our painting style.
Yeah, and they all do, like, each episode does have that different feel because of the different genre that it really dives into. How does that impact when you're doing the production design?
It impacts it to it. I mean, obviously, you're doing the interior of a spaceship. You're going to treat it a little bit differently than the exterior of a bombed out 40s, European town from the Captain Carter episode. But at the end of the day, I look at it like it's just a painting. It's like anything else. I'm going to do a painting of a landscape. I'm going to do a painting of an apple. I'm still going to approach it the same way. It's colors, it's brush strokes, it's shapes, it's lighting. So, you do want to think, I mean, again, on a technical level, you're painting a rock, you got to think like a rock. You're painting a tree, you think like a tree. So, but it really does come down to it isn't rocket science, believe it or not. The thing you do need to do, you need to be appropriate. If you're doing the interior of a spaceship, objects need to look like they're inside a spaceship, and you got to light things the way you would expect it, based on the space, and you've got to have materials that are appropriate. I probably wouldn't have, and it seems obvious, but like, you'd be surprised how often it doesn't happen this way. Like, there's certain brush strokes or certain textures that are appropriate for metal that's not appropriate for, say, bark on a tree. So you're doing an interior of a spaceship, don't do the tree bark effect or leather or whatever. And
very cool. I hadn't even thought of that, but it's very cool. You're right. It's like, oh, of course.
Yeah, it's in some ways it's basic. In other ways, it's like, you just have to think about it. It's like, yeah, I guess that does make sense, but I never really kind of thought of it that way.
And then did you have how much freedom did you have when introducing newer locations like the Lost Library and the Doctor Strange episode?
I mean, from an art department standpoint, it's kind of a non-issue because the locations were already determined by the storyline. Whether that was done by the script writers, conceived of by the executive producers and the director or the writers. There were storyboards that we would get. In our process, storyboards tend to come first, and they're pretty extensive. Actually, they're completely extensive. They'll storyboard out the entire episode, edited together with sound effects and temp voices. So we've basically got our episode in storyboard form, fully complete before it even comes to the art department. So then it's just a matter of bringing that stuff to life. So in terms of having a free hand, I mean, it was already told we're going to do this. So now it's just a matter of us designing it.
Very cool. Can you talk about incorporating the Watcher into the background of all the episodes? Because that's one of my favorite parts of it.
Without divulging too much about what is going to happen with the Watcher, I'm trying to remember exactly where the Watcher landed on the final episode. I think at the very end of the episode, you would have seen he's there floating in that kind of crystal prison where he's saying, "I'm not a god." But he's obviously talking to Strange. He's interacting. But so the idea with the Watcher is that he is a Watcher only, and he starts off in the first episode. He's barely there. I think I can't remember if we panned down from his face into Nazi Germany or whatever it was, but he's very much this kind of ethereal character that's not really there. You don't really quite know what he is. You barely even see him. You see his eyes and maybe a rim light around the side of his face. And you'll notice if you watch him, each episode he's getting a little bit more and more physical. And he's not just watching anymore. In episode 4, he's actually interacting with Strange for one moment, that moment at the very end. So he's going to continue developing. You'll see what happens, obviously, in the upcoming episodes.
And then is there kind of the MCU has some really kind of amazing locations. Are there any that are on your bucket list that you'd like to incorporate into the What If? Oh,
into MCU locations into What If, or What If episodes into the MCU?
Ooh, either.
There's that too, that we're all hoping that some of our episodes actually make it into some of the movies, or that they'll make a movie out of one of our episodes. Places I want to see. God, I'm trying to think of which ones we haven't hit already. And I don't want to give any spoilers for coming up episodes, because we do hit a number of places that are pretty sweet. And actually, you know what? I can't answer that question, because that's going to tell you that we either don't do it or we want to do it. I would like, take this for what it's worth. I would love to see oh boy, I would love to see that battlefield in Wakanda used in some way that you see in the Infinity War. I would love to see more, like, I'd love to see Ronan's ship explored a little further than that one room that you keep seeing. As a designer standpoint, that's such a cool looking design, that weird ship. I'd love to see what that thing really is.
Oh, definitely. That'd be so cool. Both of those would be amazing.
Yeah, there's so much stuff like that.
Have you had a favorite location that you've got to recreate for What If?
Wow, let's think. Again, without talking about the episodes you haven't seen yet.
Of course.
The Sanctorum is such a gorgeous location. Recreating that was really fun. Challenging, because it's really lush. The Rebirth Lab from the Peggy Carter episode was really fun to recreate. Again, also challenging because we show it from a lot of different angles, so it's not that tricky, but it was actually a hard one to pull off for a lot of reasons. The Yondu's ship is really fun because we didn't really get to explore it that much. I think we only show three locations inside that. We've got the flight deck where T'Challa walks in and he meets with Yondu. That's a beautiful location. The area where they're doing their planning, it's called the Strategarium, with all those really cool screens around. I wish we got to do more out of that. We did a fair amount in there, but that was a gorgeous location too. There's a lot of good stuff.
That's the coolest name for a room ever.
Strategarium.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. Like I said, I'm loving the show and I cannot wait for more. Every episode is just I'm so excited for.
Oh, that's great to hear. Thank you.